Welcome to 5 Favorites Fantasy Edition, where I go through 5 of my favorite reads from the fantasy genre, and I'm going to try and mix this up. Some of my favorites that are going to be more well-known, and then maybe a couple of favorites that you might not have heard of. These are not necessarily my all-time favorites. This isn't like a top 5 list. They're just 5 books that I've really enjoyed, and I think you might too. First up, The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is the first book in the Empire of the Wolf. This is kind of like legal epic fantasy, which I promise is way cooler than it sounds. This follows a man named Sir Conrad von Valt, who is one of the Emperor's justices. An Emperor's justice is kind of a mix between a judge, a lawman, an executioner, and a sorcerer, and he has these arcane abilities that are granted to him through the magic of the Emperor, where he can use the Emperor's voice to command people to speak the truth. It doesn't always work, but it works on those who are unsuspecting or weak of mind, and this can allow justices to get the truth from people they are interrogating. They also have abilities like necromancy, where they can bring corpses back to life within a certain period of time and maybe get some information from the deceased. So this is sort of a murder mystery, but it's also an epic fantasy, and we have Von Valt using these arcane powers to try and uncover something that is happening in a small town that at first seems inconsequential, but comes to have some pretty big ramifications for the Empire of the Wolf at large. Another interesting thing about this book that I really enjoy is that we're not directly through Conrad von Valt's eyes. We're actually through the point of view of a character named Helena, who is the clerk or assistant to von Valt. And she is kind of watching this powerful man who is very well respected and has this incredibly high position in the government of the Empire of the Wolf. And she is much younger and is kind of learning the ropes of being a justice and doing the types of work that Von Valt does. And so we get to learn with her about the various processes and politics and magics that Von Valt deals with in his world. And we also get to see Von Valt through Helena's perspective, which is really interesting because she admires him, but also she kind of sees him start to grow and change as things happen. And we also get to see Helena grow and change as the story progresses as well. Book 1 is excellent. Book 2 is also excellent. And Book 3 is really good as well. It's a great trilogy. I highly recommend it. There's also a lot of like eldritch Lovecraftian monsters and horror in this, which I really like the blending of fantasy and horror. So super cool. I highly recommend this. People know about this, but not enough people know about this. Next up, this is another one that people will be familiar with, Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy in the Realm of the Elderlings, which is a 16-book epic, which is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. Robin Hobb is truly a wizard, a genius when it comes to character and prose and world building. Really, she does it all. Her writing style is a little bit slow, so if you don't like slow writing or things that kind of take a while to get going, you might struggle with this a little bit, but I do think it's worth it. This is one of the best fantasy series I've ever read. Royal Assassin is one of my favorites. It's the second book in this first trilogy, and the stakes really get raised for our main character in this book. This follows Fitzchivalry Farseer, who is the bastard of one of the princes of the Farseer family. And as a boy, he is brought to the royal court to kind of be near the royal family, but he's a bastard, so he's never really a part of it, not truly. And so we get a lot of tension of his life kind of connected to the royal family, but not truly in it. There's a lot of intrigue and drama. There's animal companions. This is just written so beautifully. I absolutely recommend it. And the later books are great too. The Live Ship Traders series is great. I haven't finished the series yet. I'm like halfway through the overall Realm of the Elderlings, so I'll make more videos in the future specifically talking about it, but this is another favorite. Next up, Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson, the third book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Another series I haven't finished. You'll notice that I'm not great about going through series quickly, but I really love Malazan. I've liked it from book 1. I have to be in the right mood for it because it is so much happening all over the place. You're in different continents following so many different characters, and there's a lot happening, and so my brain has to be in the mood for this type of read. But it is one of the best things I've read in fantasy. There's truly nothing like it. It feels like you are an archaeologist uncovering a true history of this fantasy world, which makes sense given that Steven Erikson has a background in archaeology, but he's also just a brilliant writer. His prose is beautiful. His descriptions are evocative. His creativity with his world and his magic systems is pretty much unparalleled. And this is such a cool book. One other thing to finally sell this specific book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen is it has dinosaurs with sword arms. That's what I heard that really made me know I had to get through this book at least. So anyway, I love this, and I will be continuing Malazan in the future, so if you want to hear my thoughts as I finish the series, you should subscribe maybe. Here's another lesser-known favorite of mine, Navola by Paolo Bacigalupi. This is an epic fantasy set in kind of an Italian Renaissance-style world, kind of that era, and it follows a young man named Davico di Reguli, who is the son of a very powerful merchant house. His father has amassed a fortune and a lot of like political influence and sway, and so he is kind of being trained to take over this fortune at some point, but there is a lot of kind of politics and intrigue that happens around this. I don't want to say too much, but I will say that this book takes a turn at some point that really ramped things up for me and got me very excited to finish this book. And it just kind of, the second half of this book was like breakneck pace for me because I just needed to know what was going to happen. This gets intense. If you like some of the intensity of the politics and the scheming, and you like some of the almost grimdark nature of like A Song of Ice and Fire or things like that, I think you're going to like this. This is also very beautifully written. So not enough people talk about this. I think there is going to be more. This is the first book in a series, but you get a pretty interesting conclusion to this first book, and I definitely recommend you check it out. And finally, another pretty popular favorite on here, The Lies of Locke, Lamora by Scott Lynch. I love this book. I love Locke and Jean and the rest of the gang, and the banter and the dialogue in this is truly just so good. Scott Lynch is one of the best when it comes to dialogue. He's one of the best at insults, too. Like, you'll never hear swearing done so magnificently as you will in The Gentlemen Bastards. And it's just a ton of fun. And Locke and his crew are pulling heists on the nobility of the city of Camor, which is kind of like a Venice-inspired fantasy world. So they're pulling all these different jobs to swindle people out of money. And so it really fits the overall vibe with the characters and the banter and the dialogue. And I just had so much fun with this. There's a really good emotional payoff at the end of this book. There are more books in the series, and this is one that is famously unfinished. Supposedly, Scott Lynch is close to finishing the fourth book. It's been like, 14 years or something since the last one came out. Or maybe not quite that long, but it's been a while. It's one of those. That being said, I think The Lies of Locke Lamora works pretty well as a standalone. So you could read just this, have a great time, and walk away, and not feel quite as burned as if you started some other unnamed, unfinished fantasy series. So there you have it, 5 favorites from the fantasy genre. Have you read any of these? What did you think about them? And also, let me know in the comments, what is one of your favorite fantasy reads?